Thank you all so much for attending today. This is the December installment of the CWAE and Employment Services Committee joint webinar series on professional development. And today I think we have something that is really quite special. We have a sort of outside speaker, someone with a ton of experience in the field of professional development, particularly networking, and someone who's a little bit removed from the economics profession, which I think can be especially valuable. So our speaker today is Dr. Sarah Pietraszek-Mattner, who is currently a scientist with ExxonMobil and also works full-time for her own organization, the science profession, teaching people about networking and job searching and how to conceptualize that in a way that works best for all of us, especially as we consider career changes and pivots during, shall we say, turbulent times. So my role as moderator is really going to be quite simple today. I'm going to hand things over to Sarah and monitor the chat. And if you do have questions, I'll be keeping an eye on that. But other than that, again, thank you for being here. And Sarah, we are thrilled to have you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Margaret. I do appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining me this morning, afternoon, evening, depending upon where it is that you are dialing in from. So let's just acknowledge what most people think when you hear, hey, you need to network, right? As soon as somebody tells you, well, you should network more. The responses tend to be like the hair on the back of your neck starts to stand up. You would rather go and have a root canal other than network. For a lot of people, it just is one of those deals where it's almost a necessary evil. And what I want to do today is kind of talk more about, let's make networking a little bit more approachable, and especially if you're coming at it almost from an academic or a scientific standpoint, there's a way to approach networking that makes it feel more comfortable for people like us, like scientists, engineers, social scientists. And so I know that most of you have gotten into your field, and I've got into my field because you like data, you like systems, you like evidence, you like solving real world problems, not necessarily because you want to go and chat with strangers over a conference coffee table, right? But that's not necessarily what networking is. What I want to do with this session is give you some practical, no pressure guidance for networking for people like you who would rather be, going out and actually doing the work than making small talk. So the title is accurate. It is not just who you know, but I will say that who you know does definitely help. So a couple times during this presentation, I'm going to be asking you to jump in on the chat. And so this is the first of those. So in the chat, let's just do a really quick pulse check on a scale of 1 to 5. I want you to type a number in the chat. 1 is networking makes me want to hide under my desk. 3-ish is I tolerate networking. And 5 is I'm the extrovert who likes to run the conference happy hour. So I'm seeing some 2s, 1s, 2s, 3s. Oop, got somebody who's a little more extroverted. Okay, there's a 4, some 4s. Excellent. All right, good. So I'm kind of getting this kind of like average middle of the road. Sometimes could take it or leave it, maybe skewed a little bit more towards the, I'm not really all that fantastic with networking, but I'll do it if I have to. Okay, excellent. Good to know. All right, let me go ahead and just jump in and tell you very briefly about myself. So I'm Sarah Pietraszek-Mattner, Sarah PM. I'm a graduate of Indiana University back in 2004 with my PhD in biogeochemistry. So I am a geoscientist by training, and I went immediately back into the oil industry, starting working for ExxonMobil. And I'll be actually leaving ExxonMobil, taking retirement in April of this coming year. During that time while I was there, I became a manager and a leader by experience. I was never trained in any of these things, but basically they just kind of toss you into a job and say, hey, now you're a manager. And as part of that role, I did a lot of career development with literally hundreds of geoscientists and engineers. So that was kind of the beginning of what I now consider coaching. And then I became a coach by happy accident. And of course, happy accident for me was 2020. And so, I'm still with the company, but around that time, I decided that Being a manager, being a leader, being a geoscientist, while I enjoy those things, what I really took great joy in was helping other people have conversations about their careers. And so I talk about and coach anything from networking to, career experiments to the logistics of writing a resume, all of those types of things. But I really tend to focus with my clients. I'll tend to focus more on the career exploration side of things. And so you're going to get a flavor of the career exploration side of networking in our presentation today. Okay. So whether you're working on development, environment, food systems, rural issues, energy, consumer behavior, whatever it is that you're working on, there's a lot of opportunities out there that will circulate through conversations. And so this is probably the biggest reason to network. So when we say, why do you want to network? Some people will say, well, it's to find a job. I was like, well, yeah, you can find a job through networking. But the bigger conversation is you get better information when you network, and that better information leads to better opportunities for you. People will hear about projects before they're posted online. Teams are expanding because a grant came in, so you can find out about that. Agencies are going to shift priorities and potentially could start hiring. NGOs will spin up new evaluation projects. Somebody needs a new research assistant, and it goes on and on and on and on. These types of things don't happen in a vacuum. They don't happen overnight, and people always are talking about them. So using your network to be able to uncover these types of opportunities is almost the easiest way to start finding information. So when you think about networking, don't think about networking as a chore. It's not about charm. It's not about schmoozing, right? It's about information flows. It's about knowing what's happening in your corner of the world before it gets posted on the internet, all right? And so you can consider networking as part of a job search system. There is no one way to job search, but networking becomes a really solid tool that you can use to help become more successful in this space. So you can think about networking as a way for you to reduce your search costs, right? It reduces information asymmetry. It improves matching efficiency for you and for the employers. And so most people, when they're looking for jobs, will start out by looking at the job postings. And then they go from the job posting to, okay, I think I'm going to apply for this job. And there's this gap in the middle that you need to be aware of, because the job posting doesn't tell you everything. What information do you need to know before you can make the decision as to if this is the right fit for you, right? What skills are going to matter in this job? Is this work actually what you think it is? Do you actually really want to apply for this job? Do you want to know whether this team is going to be hiring soon, or are they just putting feelers out? You want to know whether finding out if a referral internally is going to help you. And if so, who is it that you need to reach out to? And whether this timeline for this job is it going to be the next fiscal year, or is it immediately? So networking through conversations will fill the gaps that those job postings don't necessarily give you. Networking and conversations are going to give you clarity. So the way that I always approach networking, and this is what worked for me, because I'm a classic introvert, and we'll get to this conversation around introverts versus extroverts a little bit later on. But I'm an introvert. I do not like going to large groups. I don't like, going to conferences. I don't like being in large groups of people. But I started approaching networking from this mindset. It's career research. I am a researcher. I have a PhD. I love research. Once I started shifting my mindset from networking is a necessary chore to networking is a way that I can actually get information, it really helped me make that switch. So you can consider networking as the literature search for your career, or the data gathering for your career. It can help you create hypotheses, test them, and you get additional data, right? So I would assume that everybody is very familiar with the process that I'm talking about. So in the chat, in one word, what career phase are you in right now? Is it exploration? Is it you're growing your career? Are you pivoting? Are you job searching? Or are you just curious? So in the chat, are you exploring, growing, pivoting, job searching, or just curious? Exploration. Number of job searching, people just curious. Good, excellent. Growing, yes. Just curious and mentoring. Ooh, mentoring. I like that one. Yes, definitely. Growing. Excellent. It's a little bit of everything, exploring, curious, and growing. Thank you. All right, good. Well, there's going to be something in this presentation for everybody, but sometimes it's good to kind of just acknowledge to yourself where you are in the process, right? You know, because networking can help with all of those things. So when we talk, I want to get specific about just hiring for a moment, because this is where people tend to have the most questions around job searching. What's the difference in how it is that you approach networking from academia versus everything else? Because I know we have a blend of people on the call, folks who are in academia or planning to go into academia. And then for folks who are either not in academia or else are planning to go out into something that's in the non-academic space. So I just wanted to draw some distinctions here. Academia, as everybody knows, because we've all been in it, it has a very specific culture. It has seminars, conferences, advisors, publications, job market signals, lots of structure, lots of norms. It's a little more formal in terms of its hiring. If you're going into academia, there's a very precise and very specific structure of hiring that you go through. And I will say that sometimes, you know, in terms of networking, in terms of influence and referrals, not necessarily very important in academia. They have a very structured way of doing things, but networking does help you get information about the process, and it is equally as important in the academic space as it is outside of academia. Outside of academia, we have things like government, NGOs, nonprofits, consulting or industry. The hiring process is less formal, although it can be argued that the government process is highly structured, not necessarily formal. But it also is a little bit more human in the sense that you are going to be using referrals and you're going to be gaining your information in different ways. So opportunities in the NGO, government, industry space, they tend to come from being in the right conversation at the right time or being top of mind when a project starts. So if you're transitioning from academia to applied practice, either as a student moving into industry or as an academic deciding to switch fields or switch careers, it's not necessarily that the rules change, but it's more that the rules become guidelines. So you come from a very relatively structured space to something that's a little less structured. But ultimately, the rules are the same. It's just that they become more like guidelines. So in academia, your network tends to be your advisor, your committee, your subfield, your co-authors, people you're doing research with, whoever you run into at conferences or meetings. It's very bounded and it's very topic driven, right? So if your whole network is other grad students and professors, you're not behind. So if there's anybody in here who's looking at this going, well, oh shoot, that's me. That's all I know. That's okay. We all started there. Every single one of us has started there. You're not behind. You're just living in the system that you're familiar with. But if you want to explore outside of academia, your network really does need to expand beyond the people who are going to be reading the same papers as you or doing the same research as you. So relationships outside of academia matter in a slightly different way. So for example, in the government, you have people at the USDA, at state agencies, at the Census Bureau, economic development offices, who often know more about those openings before they're actually posted. They also have information more about whether those openings are going to be available for non-government employees. There is this thing in government hiring where government jobs have to be posted, even if they're only going to be sourced internally. But periodically, government jobs do get sourced externally. And so finding out who knows about those is going to be important. If you're talking about NGOs and nonprofits, evaluation firms like ABT or the World Bank, policy groups like the Urban Institute, they hire based on project cycles and referrals. They go through an annual budgetary process where you go ahead and you start working through what the project's going to be, what the budget's going to be, and then you start thinking about who it is you want to bring in for those to go through the hiring process. Industry, this is where things get much more loose, right? So government, NGOs have rules. Industry, depending upon what industry you are, the rules can be very, very different. You can be looking at things like consumer analytic groups, energy and environmental firms. The value is the applied real world skills. And you're never going to know what those applied real world skills are that you need to focus on unless you're talking with somebody in the industry. Industry is also where the referrals tend to be the most important. So you need to expand on your network to be able to get these referrals. Okay, so these spaces really run on trust, competence, and timing. Those 3 things: trust, competence, and timing. And networking is going to help you understand all 3 of them. Okay, let's see a question. I have a huge network based on LinkedIn. I usually send connection requests to people as soon as I find their profile relevant, but I hardly reach out to anyone. I don't think I'm underconfident. I'm just not sure how I would be perceived. How do I overcome this thought? Okay, I'm going to have you hold that question because there's an entire section in here about how it is you're going to be doing reaching out and contacting people either through LinkedIn, through email. Okay, so just hold that question. All right, let's talk about what networking can be used for. So I've talked a lot about job search already, but there's 2 other pieces. There's exploration and there's development. So exploration is I'm trying to understand what is out there. So, and these are where you're talking to people who are working in roles that you're interested in learning about, right? You might not necessarily be interested in taking the role. You're not asking for a job, but you want to know more about what it is that they're doing so you can decide if that's something that you would like to pursue. And exploration can happen at any time in your career. So if you're in this room and you're mid-career and you're kind of like, well, I feel awkward doing exploration, you shouldn't be feeling awkward doing exploration. Change is constant. Everybody's industry or field is constantly changing. And exploration is something that everybody should be doing, right? You should be networking for exploration all the time. The development phase is if you already have a network, but you want to maintain or deepen those relationships so you can network for development. Staying connected with people whose work overlaps with yours, and finding new people. And then finally, we've already gone through the job search bit, where you're ready to apply. How does the hiring work is basically the questions that you're asking. Understanding timelines, understanding the referrals process, what strong candidates would look like. So of the 3 of these, there's no one that is any more important than the other, but I will say that timing matters. If you are starting your networking during a job search, it's not that it's too late. It's just going to be more difficult because you're going to be trying to do all 3 phases at the same time. So I urge people, go ahead and start focusing on your network well before it is that you get to a job search. In fact, networking should be part of your annual career development process. So if you are not a student and you're already in a job, likely there's some sort of performance review process that you go through. Right about that time is about the time you should probably take a look at your network and figure out if there's anything else that you should be doing to either expand it, focus it, refocus it, shift it, right? Do your networking before the job search. So different goals, different questions, but it's all networking. All right, this is the introverts versus extroverts question. So like I mentioned earlier, I am an introvert. And how I define an introvert is somebody who gets their energy from one-on-one conversations. I am not really good in a room full of people. For me, it's too noisy. I can't actually hear individual conversations when there's a lot of background noise. So good news for introverts, you do not need to work the room. You can be really, really successful in networking without having to go to conferences. 1 or 2 really good conversations is enough. So for introverts, you tend to focus on one conversation at a time. You will focus mainly on email or LinkedIn instead of cold calls or conferences to be able to reach out and make new connections. If you're an introvert, chances are you like to be prepared going into a conversation. So you're always going to have 2 to 3 questions in the back of your mind that are going to be kind of your go-to questions. And that is 100% okay. And then as an introvert, you really are going to focus on, you like to have that comfort in knowing that you have a shared experience with somebody, some common interest that you both can talk about that doesn't delve too deeply into the personal side, because you need to build trust before you're willing to share a lot. So you're wanting to find networking nodes that have shared interests. That's very important to you. For the extroverts in the room, you're equally as good at networking. You just do it in a different way. You like to be in crowds of people. You like to meet many, many different people. And so you'll be doing things like joining receptions and meetups. You'll be organizing chats or study groups. You're the one who's like all over attending the regional workshops, right? And then finally, you're the type of person who engages broadly on LinkedIn. And by engaging broadly, I mean not just watching LinkedIn scroll by, but you're the person who likes to jump in with the comment, who likes to do all of the reaching out cold without actually ever worrying about if there's a connection or not. I find you interesting, I'm going to reach out. Both of these things, introverts and extroverts, can be equally successful in networking. It doesn't matter the approach that you take. Do whatever is comfortable for you. So if you're an introvert, do not feel that you need to turn yourself into an extrovert to be successful at networking, right? So most people, when I talk with them about networking, and it doesn't matter where people are in their career, because networking has gotten such a bad reputation. The word networking makes people very uncomfortable. Most people feel like they're starting from scratch when I give a conversation or when I have a conversation with them about networking. If you're a grad student, usually what I hear is, I don't know anyone. I just know my fellow students and my advisor. Early career people will tell me, I only know all the rest of the early career folks because those are really the only ones that I've been meeting. Mid-career folks are, I get a lot of, and I get a lot of this in my company in ExxonMobil. My only network is the people that I work with. Because at the time when I was growing up in ExxonMobil, we were very insular. We're like, please don't talk with anybody outside the company. Don't share company secrets. And so we didn't, right? And that means that the only network we had was inside the company. And then if you're an academic, everybody I know is somebody I've either co-authored with or sat on a committee with. All of these things are networks. They're great. They're fantastic networks, and you can use all of them. So I'd like to ask you to kind of shift the perspective on what it is that you currently have for your network and understand that that's a good thing. You already have a network. The question that you may be asking yourself is, how do I use it and how do I grow it? You don't need to have an enormous network. You just need one good conversation to get you to the next step, and then another good conversation to get you to the next step. So really what it is when you're networking, you're trying to find those people that you click with. There is no point in maintaining a relationship with somebody if you can't stand talking to them, quite honestly. Seriously, if you are uncomfortable having a conversation with somebody, that's just not going to be a good networking relationship. It is okay to move on to the next person on your list. So how is it that you go about building a network? All right. The first question you need to consider is, who is in your current network and who is it that they know? And so the who they know is an important question. And it brings us to this concept of weak ties. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it's an important concept. And so the weak ties concept was something that was popularized by Mark Granovetter in 1973. He wrote a really great article in the American Journal of Sociology. And he proposed that second degree plus connections, they bridge different social clusters. And so they're better for people trying to gain access to new ideas and new opportunities. And the connections that others bring to your network mean that you get new information and that you get different perspectives on your reality, and that you get unique perspectives to you and you get unique opportunities. So the key is that people who have weak ties to you are less similar to you than the people who you know intimately. They can present you with diverse information. They can broaden your knowledge base, and they can broaden your opportunity space. And so, and also, they also really do help with the spread of information. And so, for a while, Granovetter's work kind of sat out there, and he continued to do work in this space, but we were never actually ever really able to put any empirical data to it until 2022, when there was a LinkedIn study that was published in the Journal of Science. And it was, I think it was like somebody from Harvard, somebody from Stanford, somebody from MIT. And what they did was they worked with LinkedIn, because the LinkedIn algorithm randomizes the types of people that they suggest that you connect with based on some degree of connection. That's usually what you can classify as a weak link. And they were able to track how effective having those weak links were for people who were looking for jobs. And ultimately, what they found out was that kind of like weak ties that were kind of medium weak ties, as opposed to the really, really distant ones, were the ones that were most effective. So what they found, that these are called causal acquaintances, and they provided, again, the novel information, the knowledge, the perspectives that are different to your close circle. So hopefully I've convinced you that weak ties are a good thing. It is okay that you don't know somebody really, really deeply. In fact, it's probably better for you that you don't know somebody really deeply, because they're going to be able to bring a different perspective to whatever it is that you're asking for. So how do you go about finding these weak ties? You're going to start with something that I call a network audit. Now, this is a resource that I'll be putting onto my webpage for everybody to gain access to. You do not need to give me an email address to get access to this, but this will be the information, or the instructions on how to do this will become available to you. Okay, so basically what a network audit is sitting down and going, all right, who's in my network right now? All right, we're going to list them, and I'll show you on the right in a second how that works. And you're going to list these people, and then you're going to look at it and go, where are the gaps? And where is it that I need to focus? So when you're going in and doing a network audit, think about what your purpose is. What is it that you're trying to do? So for me, the first time I did a network audit was, all right, I'm trying to grow my career at ExxonMobil. So I want to look at my network within ExxonMobil and figure out what that looks like. If you're looking for a job, it might be, I'm looking for a job in XYZ industry. What companies am I interested in looking at? Right. So you need to frame the question instead of basically just doing this entire network of everybody that you know. Frame your question such that you've actually put some boundaries around the type of network that you're trying to build. Okay, the three pieces to a network audit: there's operational, there's personal, and there's strategic. So this is a piece of paper. It's very simple: 3 columns, 3 labels. What I want you to do for each of these is go in and take some time and just fill in names underneath each one of these categories. So operational, these are the people that you work with every day. They're your peers. They're people who help you solve daily problems, right? They're people at your level. Personal is exactly what it sounds like. They're family, they're friends, they're your support group. Somebody once told me, it was like, these are the people that you call to help bury the dead bodies. Okay. These are the ones that really help support you in what it is that you're doing. These are the ones that you call on when things are not going well. These are also the people that you call on when things are going really well to help celebrate. You need a personal network. And then finally, strategic, people who are going to advise you on career changes, people who are in other industries or careers, or they have ties to people who are in industries or careers that are not the same as theirs or yours. They're your mentors. They have large professional networks, and they usually are in positions of authority. Excuse me. So every person on this list that you would be filling out is an opportunity for you to find some weak ties, is an opportunity for them to either talk with you or introduce you to somebody. All right. So filling out this network audit, maybe take you about 15 minutes to start. Set it down, walk away from it for a day or two, add names to it as you remember it. But after a day or two, it's probably going to be pretty set. I recommend people do a network audit on an annual basis to see how things are shifting. And also just to kind of track progress. So, for example, when I did my first network audit, I had a whole bunch of people on the operational side who were my peers at ExxonMobil, and had a whole bunch of people on the strategic side who were people who were like 2 positions above me, like the senior leadership at ExxonMobil. And I had 5 people in the personal section. And so my coach looked at me and she's like, "You need more friends." So I was like, "Okay, well, there's nothing I can do." I'm like, "I'm an introvert. I have a core group of small friends, or not small, a small group of friends." But what she told me was, you need to consider what a personal network actually is. I had very narrowly defined it. And so I actually made it a point to go and expand my personal network. And then that was the thing that actually led to a couple of opportunities for me. So even that personal network, when I ask people to fill out that particular list, they're like, "Why do I need to fill out a personal network?" They actually are really, really helpful. And they're the people that you tend to feel most comfortable with. You can try things out on them. Okay. Okay. So the reason that you
Sarah,
are,
real
yeah,
real quick, there's an anonymous question that I wanted to pitch to you before
sure.
you, yeah. So, as a mentor, I see it as my job to facilitate networking first steps for my students slash mentees and guide them to build their networks. But I don't see that all students and junior people have advisors who take this perspective. What do you
Mm-hmm.
advise for people whose advisors don't facilitate any networking starts for them? What about for people whose advisor is sensitive to being gone around, but also isn't helping with networking? I struggle with that when those students come to me instead, but I don't want to be seen as undermining their advisor's role.
Okay. That's a really good question. Especially, this can be really especially important. I see it a lot with PhD students who have mentors or PIs who are really anchored to an academic career. So if you're a PhD candidate and your mentor, or your not your mentor, but your PI is somebody who is very firmly anchored to like the academic lineage of passing on knowledge and then creating more through PhD and PhD and PhD, it can be very difficult to try to expand your network without stepping on toes. And you also don't want to actually get to the point where you've alienated your PI, right? So I believe this is where the question is coming from. If that's the case, I tend to change the framing of the word network, and I end up putting it more in, just like I had mentioned earlier, I couch it as more of research. Who is it that I can reach out to? And I always frame it in the sense of, here's the work that I'm doing for my research as a student, and I would like to get additional information on their work. That has worked well enough, I think, where if somebody's coming to you and saying, "I need help networking," is like, well, what is it that you are trying to do first? So, and for a couple of students, when they've come to me, they're like, "I'm actually trying to get out of academia, but my PI doesn't want me to leave academia." Which point we reframe it so that it's not as threatening to the principal investigator. And that seems to be the thing that works the best, because it's a win-win situation. The student gets information, and the PI knows that the student is getting information about research to further the research. What the student chooses to do with that information is completely on them. They don't need to tell the PI or anybody else the types of conversations that they're having. But in terms of how to build a network, I would reframe it as research. That seems to be the best way. It seems to be the most palatable way to not raise any flags for students who are dealing with PIs who may be a little hardcore on the academic side. Does that answer the question?
I'm guessing so, but yep,
Okay.
yes, yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. And so, and feel free, I'll have my email address is also at the end. Feel free to reach out if you want to have a separate conversation about this, to have some, if you have some questions that you don't want to raise in front of a group. Okay. Okay. So where are we? Okay. So lamp list. Once you have your network audit, it's time to start thinking about who it is that you want to talk to. All right. One way of brainstorming this is a really quick process called the lamp list. And for those of you who have not read Steve Dalton's book, The 2-Hour Job Search, this concept is taken directly from his work. And I have spoken with him, and he's basically said, yep, tell everybody. So Steve teaches at Duke University, and he has these conversations every year where he has students build a lamp list. More often than not, they're doing it for job search, but it's equally as effective if you're trying to just do career exploration work. All right, so it has 4 pieces to it. The L is your list. It's a list of organizations that you're interested in learning more about. The organizations have jobs or roles or people that you want to talk to. And you want to try to kind of keep it to a list of about, I've had people put this together in about 2 hours, and they've come up with 40 to 50 different types of organizations. They just Google the heck out of everything, and they just come up with this list of organizations that might have people that are interesting to talk to. Okay. The second column is for each of those organizations. Do you know somebody there? Do you have a connection with somebody? Do you have an advocate or an alumni? Did somebody go to the same school as you, even if they don't go to the same department? Did you have somebody who has the same advisor? Are you the member of the same professional organization? Do you have any type of connection with anybody in that organization whatsoever? And how you find that is through LinkedIn. There is a way to search in LinkedIn organizations and people to see if you know of anybody who has connections, the same connections as you. The most common one that we tend to find are alumni, literally, like where it is that you went to school. That seems to be a good jumping off point. It's a good common connection for people. The third column is motivation. This one's pretty straightforward. How motivated are you to find out information about this organization? Some of them you're like, if they called me tomorrow and offered me a job, I would jump on it in a heartbeat. And others are, I know absolutely nothing about this organization, so I am not at all motivated at this point really to learn more, right? And so when you fill out that column, there will be a yes, I'm motivated, or no, I'm not. It's a yes, no question. And then the fourth column is posting evidence. If you're in a job search, the fourth column is, does the organization post jobs, or have they posted jobs recently? Basically, how are they hiring? Do they have a budget to hire people? It doesn't matter what it is that they're hiring for, but have they posted jobs? Yes or no? And then you fill out all 4 of these, and then you go through a bunch of, you look at your data, and you kind of do some filtering and things like that, sorting, and you come up with this list of organizations prioritized from most important to least important for you. And you start finding people at each one of these organizations. The entire process in and of itself does take about 2 hours. That's why it's called the 2-hour job search. And I will be in the resources, I'll be posting a really quick cheat sheet on how to build this for yourself. If you're really wanting the theory behind it, I really strongly urge you to pick up Steve's book, The 2-Hour Job Search. He also is really, really active on LinkedIn, and he will answer any questions that you have about the process. So he's a really great guy. Use him as a resource. All right. So you've got your lamp list. You have all of these people that you would like to make connections with. What are you going to do with these people when you make these connections? And we'll talk about how it is to do that in just a second. But let's talk about why it is that you're wanting to make these connections. What you're really trying to get from each individual on this list is something called an informational interview. Now, these are very distinct from job interviews. They are not job interviews. They're not networking coffees. There's information data gathering exercises that you are conducting for yourself, right? Basically, consider them career experiments. for yourself. You are gathering data on careers or on jobs that you're interested in. So in informational interviews, you're going to ask questions like, what problems do you work on? What types of things, what is it that you actually do, right? What skills matter the most in what it is you're doing? I have this degree in something. You have the same degree. How much of it are you actually using in this job? How did you get into the role? If you're in a job search or if you're doing career development, how did you get to where it is that you are now? What has surprised you about the role? What do you wish that you had known earlier? I love it when people ask me this question about being a geoscientist at an oil and gas company. I was like, well, it depends. And that really just, it snowballs into this great conversation. What is it that you wish you knew earlier? And then if you're in the job search, a very practical question is, so what does hiring look like in your organization? If I was going to apply to your organization, what does the hiring process look like? What should I be doing? So, and then finally, the last question that you absolutely have to ask at every informational interview that you do: who else would you recommend that I speak with based on the conversation we've had today? And you've seen the information that I'm looking for. Who else do you think I should be talking to? And would you please introduce me to them? Because once you have somebody introducing you to somebody else, you have a far greater chance of actually making a connection with that person and having them respond. It's much easier than doing a cold call, a cold email, a cold LinkedIn connection requests. Having somebody actually introduce you to somebody is the best way to make a new connection. So for every informational interview that you have, please, please, please finish it with, who else would you recommend I speak with? And would you please introduce me? Okay. So let's go back to that LAMP list. You've got this list of people, and each company, you've got 3 or 4 people that you have identified that you're going to reach out to. You're going to start with one person, just one. Please don't do 27 people on the first day. It's exhausting and it's really tough to keep track of. Just one person. Start with an outreach script. You want your script to be short, specific, and curious. Hi, insert named here. I'm exploring a career in blah, 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 blah. Your work caught my eye. Now, you'll see sometimes people be like, would you be interested in sitting down so I can pick your brain? Please don't pick people's brain. Don't do it. It's an overused phrase that turns a lot of people off. Be really specific about why is it that you want to talk to this person? Hey, you know what? I noticed that we're both alumni of Penn State, and I'm doing work in this research area, and I noticed that you published a paper on this in name the year. I was really interested in your conclusions. Would you be able to talk with me? Being specific about the outreach is the most effective way of having somebody respond to you. When you put out a general, hey, let's connect, you sound interesting, I want to pick your brain, I can guarantee you that very, very few people, if any, are going to respond. Okay. So this can be a LinkedIn connection request. So if you're on LinkedIn and you want to connect with somebody, you'll note that there should be a way for you to actually attach a message to the connection request. And the algorithm changes periodically about whether or not you can or cannot do that. But if there is an option for that, please use that short area, that short, little small area to make a thoughtful request to sit down and talk with somebody. Okay. So that's the outreach script. Now, the question I think that somebody had is, all right, well, how often, how do I actually know when is enough, right? So again, it's not a job ask, it's research, and it's a two-way street. That's the other thing. I forgot to mention this earlier. Networking is not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. It is a conversation between people, right? I don't care where you are in your career, as you're an undergraduate student, a graduate student, postdoc, you're in the career, you're mid-career, late career, you have something to contribute to the conversation. If you are a student and you are talking with somebody in the industry, or you're talking with somebody in academia, or whatever role it is that you're interested in pursuing or learning more about, you have the added benefit of being closest to the most recent research. As you can bring that with you to these conversations. I can guarantee you, as somebody who is in industry, I don't have a lot of time to spend looking at the current research or the current thoughts in the, in whatever area it is that I'm looking at. I do appreciate it when students come to me and say, hey, I don't know if you knew about this, but there's this piece of research out there that was just published that you might be interested in. So you can bring something to the conversation. You're not just approaching it with your hand held out. Okay. So you've got this person you want to reach out to. You've got your outreach script. You send the outreach, and then you sit there and go, how long do I wait for a response? There actually is a really good way to do this. And this is the second part of Steve's book. It's called the 3B7, or when to follow up on a connection request. So on the upper right-hand side of the screen, you'll see 3B is 3 business days. 7B is 7 business days. So don't include weekends in this. Okay. So I'm going to walk through this step at a time. So first day, you send the initial contact request. You send an email, you send a LinkedIn request, something, right? Make a note on your calendar. Person A, I sent my initial request. Okay. You wait 3 business days. There are a couple of different outcomes that could potentially happen. If you're lucky, the person says, yes, I'd be more than happy to talk with you, at which point you schedule the informational interview. The person says, no, I'm sorry. I just don't have time, or I'd rather not. And you politely thank them, and then you scratch them off the list. You abandon the search for this person. More often than not, you get no response. And this could go, and 2 things are going to happen when you get no response. The first one is you're going to move to the next person on your list that you wanted to reach out to, and you send the same information request, same connection request out to them. And for the first person that you reached out to, you wait to the 7th business day after the initial request. If you haven't heard anything by then, you send them a follow-up email. Hey, just wanted to check to find out if you had gotten my connection request. Hoping we can connect. No more than that. You don't want to badger them, right? And then you wait an additional 3 business days. They either say yes, you schedule the information meeting, or they say no, or they don't reply. Both of those, you basically scratch them off your list and you move on to the next person. So ultimately, what ends up happening is, for any single person on your LAMP list that you are trying to reach out to, you are sending at most 2 emails over 11 days. That's it. You are not harassing them. You're not bugging them. And this is a really good way for you to actually emotionally detach yourself from this anxiety of, when do I reach out? Should I ask them again? Right? This system kind of basically removes the onus of worrying about, am I being annoying? Or, did I wait too long? It removes that emotional baggage from your shoulders. And if you just put this in place, you can kind of start working your way through this entire list of people. I will say that when you are networking cold like this, where you're basically reaching out and asking for, an informational interview, either through email or LinkedIn, the success rate on them is about 15%. So this is a numbers game. The more you send out, the higher the likelihood you're actually going to connect with somebody. So don't give up after the first 1 or 2 people who don't respond back. It is okay. Oh, thank you to the person in the chat. Okay. So like I said, per contact, you send at most 2 emails over 11 days. So don't stress it. Just however it is you want to keep track of this, flowchart, Gantt chart, not Gantt chart, but flowchart, Kanban board. I tend to use an Excel spreadsheet. I do this all the time for my own business, whenever it is that I want to go ahead and, right now, my biggest thing is learning more about the mining industry. So I'm having to reach out to people in the mining industry. I'm working through the exact same process. But instead of finding a job, I'm trying to find information. It works. Okay. Okay. So in the next 72 hours, I have a challenge for you. I want you to pick one person. Remember, I said just start with one whose work genuinely interests you. And it could be anywhere. It could be in academia. It could be at a state agency. It could be industry, right? And I want you to just send them a message. Don't send a job ask, just a curiosity ask, and start the momentum for yourself. That one ask is going to start the momentum for yourself, and the momentum will compound for you. Okay. So that's your challenge for this week. Send one outreach request, see what it is that you get. And so in the chat, what I want you to do is type one small action based on what it is that you've learned today. What is one small action that you are going to take this week? Is it going to be messaging one person? Is it going to be doing your network audit? Is it going to be creating a lamp list? Looking up an agency or an organization, commenting on LinkedIn on somebody's work. What is one small action that you are going to take this week? So go ahead and throw those in the chat. Okay, looking up an agency, good. Network audit. I found that it was a surprising thing when I learned about network audits as well. I was like, why doesn't everybody do these things? Contacting one person over LinkedIn, network audit, good, excellent. Oh, excellent. Following up on an idea seated in light networking discussions that needs to move to the next step. That's right. Think about, again, networking are conversations. They're an exchange of information, they're research. Excellent. Okay. Responding to all my LinkedIn connection requests. Nice. All right. So here's my information. Thanks so much. Thanks so much today for being here, for being interested in learning more about networking. I hope it was helpful to you. I have my email address on here. Feel free to reach out if you have any additional questions. I mentioned a couple of times there's a few types of resources I'm going to be making available. One will be the network audit instructions. The second one will be how to create your lamp list. And then the third one, which I didn't really talk about too much in here, is going to be how to conduct an informational interview. So if you've never done one of these before, there's a bit of a structure to them that I just didn't have time to get into here, but I can put it into a handout for you and you can use that. Okay. Thank you. Oh, you are. You guys are awesome. Thanks so much. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for any questions that anybody else might have. And I'm not sure, Margaret, how you want to handle these. Do we want to have people come off mute, or do you want to have them type it in the chat?
Yeah, I think we can leave that up to people. If anyone has a question for Sarah or something they want to throw out there, if you want to unmute, go ahead. If you want to put it in the chat, we can read it out. And we will be sharing all of those resources as we get them with everyone who registered. So yeah. The floor is open to everybody for a few more minutes.
So are you saying this is the good time to send you a LinkedIn network request, Margaret Jodlowski? I'm going to do it right now.
It's absolutely not a good time. Maybe in like an hour.
All right, I see a question from John. Sarah, I'm curious about your thoughts on using headhunting firms. Thanks. So, headhunting firms, recruiters, it's a personal choice. I would say that if you're going to be using contacting headhunting firms and asking them to kind of keep you in mind, make sure you know what it is that you're looking for. That would be the thing that I would really want to make sure that you clearly understand what is it that you're looking for, and also what your non-negotiables are going to be. So when recruiters reach out, depending upon the industry or where it is that they're recruiting from, they're going to have specific questions, and sometimes they're going to be around salary or location or you name it. So make sure that you have an honest conversation with yourself before reaching out to a headhunter or to a recruiter. and finding out and making sure you're clear on what are the non-negotiables for me. What would cause me to stop what it is that I am doing right now and go to something else? Or what is it that basically you offer me something and I say that's a non-starter? So for me, my non-negotiables when I started were I needed benefits. So, which is the reason why I didn't do a postdoc. I had a fantastic postdoc lined up for myself, but I also was married and I had a child, and my husband did not have a job that had benefits. And so I needed to make sure that the job that I was going to get, because we knew I was going to be making more than he was going to be making, I needed a job that had benefits. And unfortunately, none of the postdocs came with them. And so I ended up not being able to take a postdoc. It was a non-negotiable for me. So just be clear on what it is that your non-negotiables are. You're welcome, John. Oh, yes. And for those of you who are like these resources, they're for everybody. Like I said, if you're going to be, I'm in the process of updating my webpage, so they are not currently there right now. By the middle of December, I should have them there. There is no, like, you don't have to sign up for them. You don't, right? You don't have to like give me your email. Like, this is not an email harvesting exercise for me. These are truly resources that are available to anybody. So feel free to just go ahead and, like I said, if you need to use them, use them. If so, anybody who's out there who's teachers or professors, or mentors, please do use the resources. They're there for everybody.
Great, Sarah. Thank you. We are so grateful. I'm not seeing anything in chat, but I know
That's all
I'm
right.
sure maybe the introverts among us are
that's okay.
hesitant,
That's
but
not
they
a problem.
can always reach out via email. And yeah, we want to thank you. Shelley, are you still on? And if you want to unmute and advocate or advertise our next webinar, that would be great.
Yep, Shelley, you're on mute.
You're muted, Shelley.
Well, thank you. This was a wonderful presentation. I took a lot of great notes. I have to do my lamp exercise later this week. But I just wanted to let everyone know, and I dropped in the chat. We thank you all for attending. You as participants really do make these sessions. And I ask that you mark your calendars for our next webinar on resilience after rejection. It's going to be moderated by Kate Snyder-Lacey from ASU. It will be Friday, February 6th of next year at 12 p.m. Eastern. And again, we will have a panel style discussion with a mentorship mingle after the first hour. So 30 minutes, we'll stop recording and people can ask some hard-hitting questions to our panelists. So thank you all. This was wonderful.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. And thank you again, Sarah. This was great.
Thank you so much for having me. I do appreciate it. Have a great week, everybody, and have a good holiday season for those of you who celebrate.
Yep. Same to you.